Well, that's interesting. Evidently the car locked itself and thought we were breaking into it. So the issue we have going on is another door lock issue. Longtime viewers of my channel probably have seen my other video on this subject on replacing the micro switches on this vehicle. So when my wife first mentioned that she was having problems unlocking the passenger rear door, I assumed that it was going to be another micro switch issue. However, what I forgot about is that while the front doors have the feature where you can simply walk up to them and unlock them by pulling on the handle, the rear doors do not. They're just standard latches. So there are no micro switches in these doors. So what the problem is in this particular instance is a problem with the door latch actuator. So the problem we're having is when the unlock button is hit, either with the key fob or on the doors, the passenger rear door tries to unlock, but it doesn't. Sometimes you can get lucky and it'll pop up, but 99% of the time it just wiggles a little bit and doesn't pop up. It generally locks okay. It's mostly unlocking. You can see the driver's side goes up and down every time, although it seems like it's struggling somewhat too, so I have a feeling I'll be replacing the actuator on the other side as well before long. So as far as I understand it, this is not uncommon on these vehicles. The actuator motor is just not a great one, and I think maybe later in the video I'll tear down the old one just to see what makes it tick. So one thing I find really handy when trying to wrap my brain around a repair like this is to take a close look at the replacement part so you can see exactly how it's all going to fit together. So here's the brand new factory part. Again, this is something that seemed to be much cheaper on eBay than going to the dealer, surprise, surprise. And so this is what you get. So the way this sits in the door, let me get my bearings here, is like this. So this side right here is the door jamb side, that's the latch. So that's the outer edge of the door. And in fact, if you look closely here, you can see the child safety mechanism here, or child safety switch, where you can set it where someone in the back seat cannot open the door from the inside. And this cable here is what goes to the inside door handle. And then this is where the wiring harness is going to plug in. This here, I believe, is where the outer door handle is going to tie into. And this clip here is what the rod that comes up through the inside of the door will clip into. So that kind of gives us a general overview of what this part looks like. Alright, so the first task obviously is to get this inner door panel off. The inner door panel is mostly held in place by a bunch of clips, but there are 3 screws. There's one screw hidden behind a panel here, and then 2 large screws hidden below this removable panel here. So we'll show you how to get those off first. Alright, so let's remove this little plastic cover that hides the screw. Easiest thing to do is pull the handle out and get something to pry the plastic cover from this little crack and pull it out this way here. And the screw is right here. Alright, next we've got to get this lower plastic cover off the door handle. one screw is tucked up in here and the other screw is up here. And if the screw doesn't want to come out, one of these little magnetic tools is super handy. Alright, with those 3 screws out, all that's holding the door panel on is a bunch of clips. The door pretty much hooks into the top on a little lip, so you want to start at the bottom. And just once you get all the bottom clips off, push it up. And the only thing that's holding it on now is the cable that attaches the door handle to the latch that we talked about earlier. So let's see how that comes off. So this is the cable here that attaches the door latch to the inner door handle. And so get some needle nose pliers, and you're going to want to rotate this where you can get the needle nose pliers around the little clips that hold it in place. But once you've got it rotated where you can get to those clips, squeeze it, that releases it. Then you can pull this out like this, and then it comes out. Alright, so here's what the inside of the door looks like with the door panel removed. And here's what the inside of the door panel looks like. So it's a pretty cool design, really. Once you get that cable loose, that's the only thing holding it, no other wires. And the reason for that is all the wires come together in this little connection here for the speaker and for little lights and everything, and the window switch, and it just snaps into there when you snap the inner door panel on. And here's the cable that goes to the door handle and the lock rod here that goes to the actuator. And so the first thing we need to do is peel back this weather shield here. Now, when I did the front door, I didn't have any problems with this. It was very pliable. This back one, as you can see, is just deteriorating and falling apart. It's all dried out. I'm not really sure why that is. Just, I guess, age. And it has been hard to believe that 7 years since we did the front door. So I guess this is what happens after 7 years of sitting in the sun. So I may try to track down a replacement for that. Alright, and if you have a small light, great idea is to stick it in here so we can see what's going on. Alright, this is one of those things that I bought and knew would come in handy one day. It's teeny tiny magnetic tripod, so this is going to work great for hopefully giving you guys another angle of what's going on with my GoPro. Alright, first let's remove this little plastic clip from the lock cable. I just checked, and the new assembly comes with one of these clips, so we don't have to really just worry about destroying it. So we're just going to clip it off here. Alright, next let's pull out these 2 bolts. These are both T30, and this should release the actuator assembly. So now we need to release this clip here from the lock rod here, and then we need to release a clip over here that operates the handle, and of course the electrical plug. pulling that gasket out will help. Alright. Now all that remains is the wiring harness. I wanted to make sure we got a good close-up picture of how this electrical connection releases. It's pretty easy actually. You just raise up this part right here, and as you raise it up, it pulls the plug off. Alright, I just wanted to do a kind of a close-up comparison of the old one versus the new one. This here on the left is the old one, of course. And you can see that it looks like they have redesigned this clip that connects to the rod that goes to the outside door handle. From a little bit of reading I've done, this one is easier to operate. We'll find out when we get it back in the door. I did go ahead and, you probably saw there on the GoPro footage hopefully, I used a Sharpie marker to mark the lock rod where it was, because it looks like that's adjustable, and I would assume we want it in the same general location. Of course, we're going to need to transfer this rod over to the new assembly. And something else I noticed that I didn't really see mentioned anywhere is on this new one, we have a little piece of plastic or paper here that keeps the lock in the upward position. It keeps it from moving. So looks like we'll want to make sure that we pull that off when we get it all installed to make sure it obviously can move freely. There's probably a reason why that's installed. I'm not sure if it's just for shipping purposes or that you don't want it to move while you're installing it, but I'll pull that off there, I think, once I get it in the door. Alright, so next we'll just pull this off of the old one, and we'll insert it back into the new one. And now we get to wrestle this thing back into the door. First, let's get this electrical connection back on here. Well, that's interesting. Evidently the car locked itself in the absence of the assembly and thought we were breaking into it. Alright, first we need to get this rod fished back through this hole here. Alright, looks like the key may be to make sure that the assembly is in the right position before push it back into the door cavity. There we go. Alright. Make sure that the harness is out of the way. And I think what I'm going to do is just line this up. And loosely put a screw in, or maybe both screws. Right now I'm looking to make sure that other door rod is somewhere in the right position. We need to make sure that that rod stays on the side of the actuator that is towards the outside of the car. There we go. And this cable, locking cable, goes behind the rail for the window. It won't slide back in place without that. There we go. I'm just going to get those loosely threaded so that I don't have to worry about this falling back in the door cavity, but so that it's in the right general position. Let's check this. That's working. And now might be a good time to check and see if it's working at all. That looks promising. Yeah, it's moving a lot more than the other one. Alright, so now we need to get this door handle plugged in, or hooked in. Now I'm starting to regret my decision about leaving that piece of paper there. Once I install that outer locking rod, I don't think I'm going to be able to get to that piece of paper. I'd say maybe pull it off first. Alright, I have broken a little piece of paper free and verified that that lever goes up and down. Okay. It seems like everything is operating freely. So let's go ahead and tighten these back up. And make sure that the child lock is lined up kind of in the middle of this hole. Alright, I'm going to pull on this handle on the outside and make sure that it looks like everything's operating correctly. It does appear that way. This seems to be going up and down okay. Let's put this little gasket back in place. And snap this little guy back in here. Alright, now we should be able to test this and see if it's truly working. Wait for it to lock. That was one thing. Sometimes we would find the door was unlocked. Alright, that's a good sign. Let's try unlocking it. Excellent. And you can see this lock rod just goes up and down with much more force than before. So let's get the door reassembled, making sure obviously to remove the flashlight and the GoPro before reassembly. Alright, don't forget to clip this little guy back into the inner door latch, just the reverse of what we did before. Thread the lock rod back through the hole, and remember the top of the door panel hangs on the top of this little lip here, so it needs to go in first. There's also two posts, one over here and one over here, and those need to be lined up with the holes first before the door will lay flat with, or the door panel will lay flat with the door. I find it useful to look through here and line the hole up. how that pushed back in. And now all the snaps should just line up. Alright, so now it's time to get the 3 screws back in and pop those covers back in place, and that'll be it. And one final check for proper operation here. Wow, what a difference. Now I am really curious about if we can tell what went wrong with this, and it's not really a serviceable item. We've got rivets here that'll need to be grinded off, but might as well destroy it and figure out what makes it tick. I realize this is probably overkill for this type of job, but it's going to be a heck of a lot more fun. Alright, this little guy here, I'm assuming, is what has failed. And you can see, I mean, this is just not something that can be torn apart and serviced without absolutely destroying it. Or at least I don't know a way to do it without destroying it. And looks like we've got a lot of carbon buildup or some sort of buildup in here in the end of this motor. Let's crack it open, why not, and see what it looks like. So you can just see here, this motor is shot. But after almost 100,000 miles and about 10 years, I guess it's not the worst thing in the world. Another interesting thing I noticed once I got this apart is this has a couple of micro switches in it, very similar to the ones that were in the front door handles. They look like a very similar design, so I suppose this could be another point of failure. Alright, a little more destruction sawed off this end so we can really get a view for what this little guy looks like. Alright, that about does it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope somebody finds it helpful. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps small channels like me. And we'll be back with some more videos before long, I'm sure.